All right, I'm very excited about a long weekend coming up, but there isn't a day that goes by that all of us aren't worried about our health or thinking about how we could live better or considering all the options. And we are bombarded on an almost daily basis with, you've got to do this. You've got to have this many hours of sleep. You must take these supplements. This is how you get your brain to work better. These are the kinds of things that you should do every day as part of your routine. Otherwise, you're going to just have a terrible quality of life. And it's too much pressure for many of us. And I found out about something really interesting. I've actually tried, I'll talk about the product in a moment or two. I've tried one of your products, but I found someone called Dr. Ralph Tetiamlalo, who's here with us, Managing Director of HG&H Pharmaceuticals. Now, these guys supply a clinically proven, patented, standardized, local botanical ingredient, which manages stress, anxiety, and cognitive support. It's called Zembrin. We'll talk about that in a minute. But it's so nice to talk to you. And you look full of the joys of spring. You're the best ad for your own product. I mean, it's not spring, it's autumn, but you're the best ad for your own product. And I love anything that'll help people manage their stress, live more, live better. So thank you for coming to join us this morning, because I want to know all about this plant.
Yeah.
I also want to know about the people who had this knowledge of the plant before you guys, the pharmacists and the agronomists, discovered it.
100%.
So tell me a little bit about those.
So this is not a new plant to South Africa. In fact, the history of this plant dates well over 300 years, primarily belonging to the Khoisan tribe. As early as the 17th century, the Dutch traders actually came across this plant and they were using it for trade. It was actually a form of currency at one point, and it was a well-known plant. The local guys noticed that anytime they chewed the plant, it gave them strength to their limbs, gave them memory, and they could go days on end without food or water. But being a botanical plant, right, it is dependent on how the plant is grown, the environmental conditions. So you have to control the growing protocol of this plant. Otherwise, you could end up with various cultivars of this plant. So it's also important to note that although there's a plant Sclerotium, there are different cultivars of it, and it's also because of the exposure of environmental conditions.
So do you guys grow it in greenhouses now and this?
Well, we grow it under sustainable cultivation, but not typically your typical greenhouse.
Because it grows in arid areas if it's in the Northern Cape.
The wild harvesting happens in arid areas, which is where traditionally the Khoisan people lived, because they lived in dry, arid regions. But the plant is protected by the South African government under the Biodiversity Act. So we're not encouraged to do wild harvesting. So what we need to do is develop sustainable cultivation practices, which is where the late Dion Hofmeyer came in to help us get that right.
Okay, so Ralph, you need to help me understand this. Is there a special secret ingredient that you've identified among the chemicals that you can harvest from this plant? Yeah. And what is that chemicals effect on our nervous systems that is so beneficial? How does it work?
All right, good. So there are alkaloids that are present in the plants, but depending on how it's grown, you could actually have a plant with no alkaloid activity, or you could have a plant that exhibits very high amounts of undesirable alkaloid activity, or just about the right amount. So it's important to know that there's different types of Sclerotium. That's why we had to trademark ours as Zembrin versus what we traditionally call as Canna, which is normally your unstandardized. The challenge with the unstandardized ones is that it has, either than not having any activity at all, you could actually have euphoric effects. And there is a little bit of history to it. So when Nigel was doing the research, he realized that when the Khoisan people wanted to go on days on end, without food, water, they knew the cultivar to chew. So they chewed a certain specific type of it. Then when they wanted to sort of dance around the fire, play drums, sing and dance to their ancestors, they chewed another type of it. The later part of it is the one that we know that has high amounts of mesembrine.
If this is a way for them to manage it, and there are lifestyle things that I suppose you can do, but we do live in the era, and I don't blame anyone. We live in the era of, if you could take a pill to solve a problem or to make things better, then you will. I mean, I take a bunch of supplements every day. Yeah. And if I were an anxious person, which don't know that I am, but maybe it's because this Zembrin of yours has already worked. But I would take it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it seems to me that there are no, it's a natural product, so there are hardly any huge chemical considerations you need to make.
Yeah. So as part of our, research, we have a full suite of what we call safety and toxicology research has been done. It's very safe. The coenzyme people were actually given it to the children to manage colic. In the early research days based in Cape Town, one of our early researchers was actually given it to pregnant women to help manage, especially first-time pregnant women, to help manage the anxieties of pregnancy. So this just gives you a little bit of comfort to know how safe it is. We use a very small dose, 25 milligrams. We can go as high as 600 milligrams if we choose to, but that's not important because it's so potent at such a low dose that you could feel the effects almost very quickly. Very quick acting. Most people feel it within 30 minutes or less. But generally, on average, within the first 2 hours, you will start feeling the sensation of calmness, but not calmness to make you fall asleep, but calmness to keep you focused so they can just get on.
All right, so we've got anxiety being ticked off here. We've got people who are stressed. They can also, but the last one is probably the one that I'm most interested in because I wonder how far off we are from pills that actually enable us to think faster, better, clearer. And then I hear about this, and you're telling me that your product has the ability to improve cognitive function.
100%.
I mean, this is manna from heaven to me.
It's
Tell me how it works.
So the alkaloids, we know of three, but two main mode of action. So the mood, anxiety, and stress reliever comes from the fact that Zembrin has the ability to inhibit the serotonin reuptake inhibitor. So very similar to your anti-anxiety, antidepressant drugs on the market. But the cognition part of it is that simultaneously, Zembrin also has the ability to inhibit the PDE4 receptors as well. And that's
which are?
So these are receptors that, are responsible for cognition and focus, the ability to sort of improve reaction time, speed. So if you look at some of the applications where Zembrin can be used, where you've got to, let's say you've got a presentation coming up, you're feeling a little bit anxious, or, Zembrin takes off the edge but keeps you alert. So in fact, what we coin is alert serenity, being alert, but doing so in a very calm state.
Well, anything that improves our cognitive function, you've got to be a fan of. Have you been trying it? And I thought of what you're doing with research and development in this respect. And to me, it occurs as a thing that we should be quite proud of, is that we've got unique environments in South Africa, and we've got ancient knowledge, and we've got modern technology. Yeah. And all of these can combine to develop potential cures, supplements, improvements in quality of life for people, which we should all be very, very impressed by. And I think that this is the leading edge of where we could start to make a major impact internationally. We're not going to do it in, massive laboratories, or not that we don't have those, but we can't really compete with the big pharmaceutical companies in Western Europe and America. But where we can is with the natural stuff.
100%, Gareth. And I must say, there is a shift now, even with big pharma. I think there's the realization that new compounds are not coming out very quickly. So where there's a lot of investment now, it's in what we call the nutraceutical space. Yeah. So that's the space we actually play in, plant-based medicines in the nutraceutical space. A lot of our big pharma companies now are starting up nutraceutical arm. One of our very exciting product launches we have coming up in the US is with Johnson & Johnson. Johnson & Johnson is a household pharmaceutical company.
Absolutely.
But it's with the consumer care division called Kenvue, and we'll be launching a Zembrin Tylenol brand. That's actually happening.
Wow, that's a combo.
This month. Yeah, so it's also something that we're quite excited about. Many other pharma companies like Bayer, are also looking into it. Pfizer through Helion is looking into it. So the future of medicine is especially in the West, is nutraceutical, and there's a big market for nutraceutical ingredients.